Hello and welcome to our election special show, India Votes 2019. I am Vishal Dahiya. The stage is all set for the biggest electoral event, that is General Elections 2019. Approximately 90 crore voters will exercise their franchise in 7 phases to elect their representatives to the 17th Lok Sabha. All political parties have picked up the pace and are busy deciding their candidates and stitching alliances based on various permutations and combinations in specific states. While in some states, it's a direct fight between both national parties, BJP and Congress. It's the alliance led by them, respectively, the NDA and the UPA, which is taking on each other in some other states. However, regional parties are also strong players in several states, making it either a triangular or a multi-cornered contest. So let's take a look at these scenarios across the country.
Traditionally, election reporting categorizes constituencies as two-cornered or three-cornered and even multi-cornered contests. This refers to the number of significant candidates who are facing off action against each other in that constituency. For instance, there can and will be many candidates in any contest, but only a few will get a reasonable number of votes to make them be considered as a reasonable bet as winners. So a two-cornered contest will refer to the possibility of two candidates or groupings having a realistic chance of tasting victory. The rest will only account for the scattered votes. The calculation is often applicable to entire states. A state like Uttarakhand, where the BJP and the Congress are serious contenders on all the seats in the state, will be labelled a two-cornered contest. Uttar Pradesh, that has the BJP, SP-BSP alliance and the Congress in the fray, becomes a three-cornered contest, and so on. A significant candidate or a group can be calculated on the basis of its ability to get a minimum of 1/6 of the total polled votes in the constituency or the state. Getting 1/6 of the vote is what determines whether candidates lose or retain their deposit. Going by the figures of the 2014 Lok Sabha elections, the BJP and the Congress were locked in straight fights in Uttarakhand, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh and Rajasthan, which means these are expected to be two-cornered contests. Similarly, in terms of groupings in the 2014 Lok Sabha elections, the NDA and the UPA candidates had a significant vote share in the states of Bihar, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Assam and the northeast states. The 2014 figures also show triangular contests in Uttar Pradesh, Bengal, Delhi, Punjab, Jharkhand, Odisha and Kerala. Multi-cornered contests are expected in Andhra Pradesh, Haryana, Telangana and even Jammu and Kashmir. Another important fact is that as the numbers of significant candidates increases in any state or constituency, correspondingly the margin of victory drops, which means more the number of significant candidates, lesser could be the possibility of the winner getting a huge margin. In other words, it will be a close contest in these states or constituencies.
So even as efforts to form alliances continues, there are some states that will see a direct fight between the BJP and the Congress. The Congress party's wins in 3 Hindi heartland states, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh in the recent assembly elections has ensured that the two parties will be locked in a head-to-head contest. Besides these 3, Uttarakhand, Himachal Pradesh and Gujarat will also see a direct fight between the two parties. Let's take a look at the 2014 Lok Sabha poll results in these states. Now, of the 29 Lok Sabha seats in Madhya Pradesh, the BJP won 27, with just 2 going to the Congress. However, the recent assembly elections win for the Congress in the state may help the party in consolidating its numbers this time around. Let's now talk about Rajasthan, where once again the BJP had swept the state in 2014. All 25 seats in the state went to the party, along with over 55% of the vote share. The story was the same in Gujarat as well, where BJP had a clean sweep, winning all 26 Lok Sabha seats in the state. Over in Chhattisgarh too, BJP made a clean sweep. Here too, the Congress party is coming back from a big win in the recent assembly elections. So we'll have to see as to how things are going to pan out in the state of Chhattisgarh. In Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh, the BJP made a clean sweep, leaving the Congress with no seats. Now, the BJP won all 5 seats in Uttarakhand and 4 seats in Himachal Pradesh. So for more on this, we're joined by a distinguished panel of guests in the studio today. Let me first start by introducing all of them to you, beginning with Mr. Shekhar Iyer, senior journalist who is with us. Then we also have with us Aditi Fadnis, political editor of Business Standard. We also have with us Mr. Sanjay Singh, political editor of First Post. And we're also joined by Mr. Alok Verma, the founder and editor-in-chief of News.com. Welcome all of you to Rajya Sabha TV studios. Let me begin with you, Shekhar. The way we've informed our viewers how things stood in 2014 and what's the scenario like. But if we first focus on the 2 major national parties, that is the BJP versus Congress, there are several states where they are head-to-head.
Yeah, because just as your report mentioned, there are more than half a dozen states where the fight is very direct. And so a lot of focus is on these states because these are the states where the BJP did very well in 2014. And subsequent to that, we have seen Congress making headway in at least 3 states, Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh and Madhya Pradesh. So the whole focus on these states will be how far is BJP able to retain its numbers, or how much does the Congress gain following, particularly in these 3 states, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh and also Gujarat is also important because Gujarat had seen assembly elections in last December. And where the Congress did quite well, and they were able to restrict BJP to less than 100, though the BJP managed to form the government because it had just the requisite numbers. So that's also another state where to see how much has Congress consolidated the kind of gain it got in the assembly elections. But what has happened is in the last year, or even after the assembly election, these 3 states, a lot of chemistry has changed as to either benefit or be disadvantaged to both the parties. I won't say that it is to one party only. Therefore, this is going to be a very, very interesting battle, particularly in terms of actual gains and how much you are able to consolidate and how much you are able to get more.
Specifically between the direct fight between 2 parties. Aditi, do you agree with Shekhar here that, in these states where it's a direct fight between the BJP and the Congress, the onus lies on the BJP here to go ahead and retain its numbers in 2014 because most of these states were clean sweep for BJP?
Many of those states are quite small and it should not be very difficult for the BJP to retain its numbers. Himachal Pradesh, for instance, is small and BJP has a state government there. So I don't think it's going to be that difficult.
Same is the case in Uttarakhand?
The same is the case in Uttarakhand, although Uttarakhand has seen at least 4 of the BJP stalwarts fall out. General Khanduri is not contesting the election. The others who are probably not contesting are former chief ministers and other senior BJP leaders who apparently are not making the grade because they are over 75. So there is a race now to replace those faces. How that works we have to see because I mean there's no bar on new faces being equally capable of winning the election. General Khanduri's son Manish is expected to contest on behalf of the Congress from Pauri Garhwal. We have to wait and see. So I would not say a template will apply. But certainly, the BJP is in a better position.
Sanjay, coming specifically to these 3 Hindi heartland states, which went to the polls, assembly elections just recently, and significantly in all these 3 states, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, and Chhattisgarh, BJP made a huge gain in 2014, and then losing assembly elections. So, how do you think things are going to pan out in states like these?
Vishal, the figures that you showed of Chhattisgarh, Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh, BJP lost only 2 in Madhya Pradesh, 1 all in Chhattisgarh and Rajasthan. Congress has won these 3 states, and therefore there was great deal of buoyancy among Congress and Congress supporters, sympathizers and whosoever was say on political divide, they were against Modi, against BJP, and so much so that mood was almost euphoric. If you talk today, I think the mood had changed. Even then, on the ground, when I was traveling to cover those elections in these states, the mood on the ground was, yes, in these elections we are voting for the Congress. Come parliamentary elections, we want Modi as Prime Minister. I'll not be surprised if BJP retains previous numbers except Chhattisgarh, retains those numbers or come very close to the numbers that you got in 2014. The other states, Gujarat, of course, Congress went there, held CWC meeting where all 3 family members, Sonia Gandhi, Rahul Gandhi, Priyanka Gandhi was supposed to be Brahmastra, and therefore the Brahmastra travelling from Amethi, Raebareli and Lucknow outside of that period in Gujarat, making a speech there, Congress would hope that there is a great deal of impact. But I think post Pulwama, post Balakot, the situation, mood of the nation, mood of the voters has changed tremendously, almost dramatically. And therefore, I think in these elections, even in areas where BJP and Congress are pitted head to head, I think advantage lies with Modi, advantage lies with BJP.
Okay. So, as Sanjay is saying, that advantage lies with BJP in these states as well. Let's bring in Alok Verma here. Alok ji, you know, on these particular states specifically where both BJP and Congress are head to head, what's your analysis as to what all both parties will be looking forward to?
So, both are making right notes so far as winning the voters' attention is concerned. I think the pitches are very much there to everyone to see that you know, nationalism has been one of the biggest you know, pointers in the speeches which BJP leaders have been giving, and whereas the Congress party has been trying to pin down Modi and Modi's nationalism you know, spirit, the whole question in at least these 3 states, which is the Hindi heartland, which you are mentioning right now, about probably Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Uttar Pradesh. In my opinion, nationalism probably a phenomena which is going to be much more city-centric or much more urban. Whereas as you go down, you know, the rural heartland or rural areas, I think people still are going to talk in terms of what benefits they have accrued out of BJP government. So, at the end of the day, the economic issues related to whether these schemes of Jan Dhan or there is schemes of giving gas cylinders or the or all other, you know, SOPs which have been granted by the BJP, probably would be the most critical issues when people decide to vote for the BJP.
Okay.
But I think the advantage BJP in my mind is that the entire opposition of the Congress, they have not been able to create a sense of confidence in the minds of voters. While everybody is looking at when it comes to the central politics or you know, winning or choosing a prime minister, I think whether it's central the urban areas or rural areas, they all look for stability. And I think where Modi scores highest, because he has come out as a tall leader who says and who has gained the respect of people, that here is a man who has fought against the corruption, and here is a man who at least speaks for the benefit of poor, and therefore he is the only person probably who can grant the stability as far as governance is concerned.
Okay.
So on those accounts, I would say Congress has not been able to create any dent, and therefore I feel that advantage Modi is due to the stability factor rather than I would put nationalism as a factor.
Okay. So what Alok ji is saying is that, you know, the stability as well as, you know, the factor of Modi personality, the you know, Modi persona, that is going to be going BJP's favor. But one point, Shekhar, before we slip into break, I want to ask you is, That looks like what all of you are indicating is it's an entirely different ballgame when we talk about assembly elections and Lok Sabha elections. So all those gains which have been made by either of the parties anywhere might not reflect in the similar way to those parties in these elections.
Yeah, quite possible that assembly elections and Lok Sabha elections may be different. And also, 5 to 6 months is a big time in politics. So the mood that was prevailing then and which was against the incumbent government, and the national mood today and the mood of the voters in terms of parliament elections could be diverse and could be different. So therefore, one has to see how it plays out, because now that we have got next about 8 weeks before things voters go to the polling booths. But definitely one can see a lot of there is a jubilant mood in the BJP. The cadres are highly enthused. Prime Minister Modi has mounted a very aggressive campaign. So therefore, there is an impression that the BJP has got off that race rather early, and they seem to be streaming ahead.
Okay. Aditi, you agree on that aspect?
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. And also, I must point out that the Indian voter is quite discriminating about assembly and Lok Sabha elections. So, for instance, when I went to cover the Karnataka campaign, I found that people were very dispirited by the BJP's fielding of B.S. Yediyurappa as the chief ministerial candidate. Notwithstanding that, the BJP still did extremely well by taking its tally in the assembly from 40 to 104. But despite that, people said, we will vote for BJP in the assembly not because we like Yediyurappa, but because we know that Yediyurappa may be replaced by someone younger and more dynamic, because Mr. Modi will insist on that.
Okay.
And they also made it very clear to me that they may vote for BJP in the assembly, but they will vote for Modi in the Lok Sabha.
Okay, so Sanjay, it looks like strong central leadership and stability is going to be the key between these two parties, specifically in these states where they are head to head.
See, Modi's persona, I don't think any political leader at the moment matches him. His kind of public reach, the kind of ideas that he has. Today, for instance, he came out with Main Bhi Chaukidar in response to Rahul Gandhi's Chaukidar Chor Hai. And there he said anybody, everybody, whosoever is working towards building of nation, Safai Karamchari se lekar ke and small kind of entrepreneurs to weavers to everybody. And that's a smart campaign. The other thing that you are talking about, these three states, their outcome and parliamentary states outcome. In last assembly election, BJP won all these states and lost parliamentary elections. Prior to that, Vajpayee, when BJP won all these states and lost parliamentary election. Even before that, when person like Bharat Singh Shekhawat lost Rajasthan and Digvijay Singh won in Madhya Pradesh, and BJP won parliamentary elections way back in 1999, 98 ke baad 99 ke election. That situation, in fact, is different. When people go out to vote for parliamentary election, in these elections, Modi's popularity, there is no indication that Modi's popularity has gone down. In fact, what the economic aspect or developmental aspect which Mr. Alok Verma was talking about, add that to what Pulwama and Balakot has added is that emotive value has come to those aspects. So and therefore, that mood of nationalism is acting as a catalyst, so to say, that has charged up BJP's cadre, and also people at large. That has become a huge emotive issue, whereby you see Modi as a strong leader, a decisive leader who can walk the talk on critical issues like national security.
Okay, so it's going to be altogether a different ball game in these elections in these specific states where both Congress and BJP are head to head. We'll slip into a short break right now, but when we come back, we will talk about the alliances led by these two national parties, that is the NDA and UPA, in head-to-head fight with each other on several states. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Now, 4 states, that is Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Karnataka and West Bengal, together account for 190 Lok Sabha seats. Now, they're also being seen as key battleground states in the upcoming Lok Sabha elections. In 2014, the NDA won 123 Lok Sabha seats in these states. Now, but in 2019, the picture has altered quite a bit. For one, the opposition parties are not as fragmented as they were earlier. Let's first talk about the two states that will see a fight between the two alliances of UPA and NDA. In Bihar, leading the NDA, the BJP bagged 31 of the 40 Lok Sabha seats in a multi-cornered contest in 2014. The Congress, RJD combined and the JDU contested separately then. In 2019, the BJP, JDU and the LJP have combined against the RJD Congress alliance to make it a bipolar contest. In Karnataka, provided 17 of the 28 Lok Sabha seats to the BJP in 2014. This time around, the Congress and the JDS have come together. The BJP finds itself in a two-cornered contest. Okay, so let's talk about, these two specific states as well as some others wherein it's, the alliances led by both Congress and the BJP, which seems to be in a direct fight with each other. Let me begin with you, Shekhar, and let's start with states like Karnataka or, states like Tamil Nadu as well down south. Therein, it looks like the fight is all set.
Yeah, because finally, two alliances have come into shape. You have the DMK-led alliance in which Congress is a part. The two communist parties are there and some regional groups like, Vidudalai Shirtaikal that is headed by Thirumavalavan, it's a Dalit group. And then you have the Muslim League, and on the other hand, you have the ruling AIA DMK, then you have the BJP, you have PMK. They managed to rope in Vijayakant's DMDK. So there are, two clear fronts. Now, just if you take the Tamil Nadu case and Pondicherry, if you include it, there are 40 parliamentary seats at stake. Now, with this formation of alliance, what earlier seemed to be a situation where the ruling AIDMK is in a kind of a disarray because of internal dissensions, and the DMK having an edge. Now that picture has completely changed. Now today you have a formidable two fronts because these fronts are not generally representing parties as much as the caste arithmetic. Like ADMK's tie-up with the PMK, Patali Makkal Katchi, which is a party for 1 year. Now 1 years are a very important section in northern and central parts of Tamil Nadu. So that's very important chunk. And then to get in DMDK, which is led by the actor Vijayakant, he himself has not been keeping well, but then he has a support percentage which is calculated between 6 to 9%.
Okay.
So then you have got the BJP. Now BJP has managed over a period of time, managed to have pockets of very good influence, whether it is Nagarkoil, that is near Kanyakumari, or Coimbatore, or parts of Salem. There are some pockets where the BJP, so you see there is a lot of arithmetic and caste combination.
Okay.
So therefore, this is one state. Now, we were talking about Karnataka. Karnataka finally, Congress and JDS came to an agreement, but there are a lot of issues because many Congress leaders are upset. Some of the seats which were won by the Congress in 2014 have been given to Devagowda, that is JDS. And also within the JDS, what has happened is also very interesting. You see, they wanted at least 12 seats, they thought they will get 10, finally they got 8.
Okay.
Now, in the 8, 3 are going to be from the family. That is Devagowda himself, probably he will contest from North Bengaluru. And these two of his grandsons, both the Chief Minister Kumaraswamy's son and the other son, Revanda's son, they are going to contest from 2 seats.
Okay, so the both parties might have to deal with dissent.
So, no, the whole problem is, in the case of JDS, if 3 goes, only 5 are left for the other parties. Now, in Congress, what has happened is some of these seats like Tumkur, Uttar Kannada, these are important constituencies which, which has become a problem.
Okay, let's now move on to Maharashtra and Aditi. Maharashtra is a classic case of a fight between NDA and the UPA. So if somebody wants to have an idea, as to how both these fronts are fighting each other, Maharashtra is a good example.
Well, it's very difficult to assess what is happening in Maharashtra because something that is happening in Maharashtra today has never happened there before. You have not had the Shiv Sena being such a malcontent and such a critical, viewing the BJP as so critically ever before. Similarly, the Nationalist Congress Party and the Congress are fighting together, but there are very conflicting signals coming from the NCP. We don't know whether Sharad Pawar is going to contest the election, he is not going to contest the election. Earlier he said he was not going to, then he said he was going to from Madha, then he said he was not going to. So it's all very confusing.
Okay.
So frankly, the outlines of the front are not at all clear.
Okay.
And of either front.
Okay.
The only thing we know for sure is that Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis is regarded in a good light generally, because he's supposed to have done good work. And Shiv Sena is going to go into the election asking for votes, but without having its heart in the appeal for votes.
Okay, in the alliance, that's what you're saying. In fact, we have our correspondent on the ground out there in Mumbai. Rajat is there for us. Rajat, you know, as we're discussing the state of Maharashtra specifically, looks like the political situation there remains a bit fluid on both fronts, specifically with Sharad Pawar not making it very clear, or rather making it clear a number of times whether he'll contest or he'll not contest.
Well, that's right, Vishal. The political situation here is yet to emerge, I would say, because although NDA has taken a lead, or for that matter, BJP has taken a lead as compared to the opponents in striking alliance, be it Maharashtra or the other states. We all know that Shiv Sena has been a bit of a tough ally for the BJP, and it has given them a kind of a criticism as well in Delhi, in Parliament House, and we saw that how Shiv Sena participated in a lot of opposition's sit-in and stirs when the Parliament House were in session in past couple of years. But now I just interviewed the BJP spokesperson of Maharashtra, and he was like that whatever was there between the two parties, whatever differences were there between the two parties, it's now a past, and both the parties will fight this coming general elections with full might, and they would score even better. Now let's not forget that BJP and Shiv Sena in 2014 was whopping 41 seats out of 48 seats, and UPA, which was the Congress party, and the NCP was merely 6 seats, 4 to the NCP and 2 to the Congress, and even there it was Congress. Local strong faces of Rajiv Satav and Ashok Chavan from Nanded. Now, these are Marathwada used to be Congress stronghold, and Konkan Belt and Western Maharashtra used to be stronghold of the NCP. But this time, in local body polls, and which happened subsequently to the assembly polls, where BJP won 122 seats out of 288 seats, which is the highest ever tally they have scored at the legislative assembly level. BJP has grown across Maharashtra, and at the expense of Congress. That is what the local bodies polls have suggested. Now, whether that performance continues, if that happens, then BJP may well stick to its tally, or for that matter, may improve even further. Now, they have 23 seats already in the kitty if we compare 2014. So they go in this election with an upper hand, considering they have, as they claim, they have flattened out differences with the ally, the Shiv Sena. On the other hand, we have the UPA, where Congress and NCP are still trying to strike an alliance, or to say an understanding between themselves.
Okay, Rajat, thank you so much. So as Rajat is clearly pointing out that, BJP managed to have retained the alliance with Shiv Sena, and that is thereby consolidating its position in the state. Let's now move on to Bihar, and let me bring Sanjay out here. Sanjay, Bihar is a very, very interesting and a curious case. The way combinations keep on changing in every elections. This time around, the way things are placed, and with Congress left with just RJD in its, camp, if we call it UPA at all, in the state of Bihar, all that talk of Mahagathbandhan, which was being there, seems to have diminished and clearly wiped out as far as Bihar is concerned.
Vishal, Bihar Assembly elections took place in 2015. And then, since then, that word Mahagathbandhan is in vogue for 2019 elections. And Congress was one of the champions. In fact, Congress was supposed to be the alternate pole for the parties and groups coming for Mahagathbandhan. JDU subsequently walked out and joined hands with the BJP. fact remains that this Mahagathbandhan term, and then there were talks that BSP and SP, if JDU and RJD could come together, why not SP-BSP? SP-BSP of course came together, but they did not invite, or in fact Mayawati and Akhilesh Yadav both snubbed Congress party. In fact, we also heard a word called Federal Front, and which was propounded by Mamata Banerjee and also Chandrababu Naidu. And then you had another catchphrase, one nation, one opposition. So I think by now, if Congress was in serious contention for being in power or coming to power or defeating Narendra Modi, they should have stitched up their alliances. The alliance in Bihar, they talk about this thing, but 5 parties, RJD is supposed to lead that pack. Congress is demanding something which they say unrealistic aspirations. Their aspirations have gone high after winning these 3 assembly elections. Then you have people like Sharad Yadav, who have stature but does not have party or support on the ground. Then you have Mukesh Sahani. Then you have Upendra Kushwaha. Then you have Jitan Ram Manjhi. Cheat sharing out there is a huge problem. Turn to Uttar Pradesh. Alliance could not take place. Mayawati, in fact, as recently
We'll come to Uttar Pradesh when we talk about multi-corner contest. But on Bihar, another question I have is the way BJP and JDU have managed to go ahead and clear their line, in terms of ensuring that both have their own share. And no problem specifically for BJP as far as the alliance partner is concerned in the state of Bihar, the way it became difficult somewhere down the line in the state of Maharashtra.
See, in Bihar, BJP made a bit of climb down in terms of number of seats. And JDU also, if you consider in terms of the number of seats they used to contest in 1998, 1999, 2004 and 2009, and subsequent to that in 2014 when they separated, of course that was a different story, and also accommodating Ramvilas Paswan, and there was some kind of, in fact before seat sharing negotiations there are some kind of positioning. That part is effectively sealed. But problem comes, and then you had what was said, that very strong combination on arithmetic, at least on arithmetic, RJD, Congress, Kushwaha, Manjhi, Sharad Yadav. Sharad Yadav, of course, as I said, he has stature, does not have a party or support base on the ground. What is happening to that? On one hand, and therefore the NDA has a clear start. I believe NDA is not going to have any problem in terms of campaign, in terms of the outcome. I think their outcome would be same as in 2014. They may even climb up in terms of numbers. They had won 32 seats out of 40 seats in 2014. I think that number can also go up in 2019.
Okay, so let's wait and watch what exactly happens in Bihar. Let's bring in Alok here. Alokji, the way both alliances are placed, specifically the NDA and the UPA in those states where they are head-to-head, looks like BJP has managed to consolidate its position once again in the form of alliance as well, by bringing in a few more new alliance partners and ensuring that the old ones stay with it.
Yeah, that's exactly, BJP finally has been able to assuage the all unhappiness of all their alliance partners, and somehow they have been able to bring all together, and they have a very smooth way of sharing, seat sharing formula. I mean, so much so that even AGP has come back even after showing so much of unhappiness with the BJP. So if you really look at it, the way they have really stitched together a very formidable partners, which whatever partners they've had, they're already continuing with that. That has gone a very good, send a very good signal that, the party or NDA is being seen as one single, party with alliance. And on the other hand, if you really look at the Congress party could not really stitch a very formidable alliance in spite of that whole talks which our friend has just mentioned, one nation, one opposition, but really there is no one opposition for the entire nation. So on that account, and then the management, if you really look at the way the BJP has been managing the, the last mile, the booth management, the way the cadre is there, the kind of, databases they have, they already have the advantage of, going to the, the party cadres, going to the various villages and other centers to manage the voters. On the other hand, if you really look at it, what really looks like the Congress doesn't look like to be a very, orderly house. It's very difficult that they have the A, alliances in line. The B, it doesn't look like that they have a very good political poll booth management at this time.
Okay.
Which we saw somewhere in Madhya Pradesh or in Rajasthan or in Chhattisgarh. While states like Bihar or states like UP, I don't think they are still somewhere near the near BJP in terms of managing the booth polls.
Okay. So
therefore, it looks like that the BJP has all the all the alliance in place. Their partners are going to face the this time election in a much more organized way as compared to the Congress.
Okay, so clearly, as all our panelists are pointing out, that the fight between the two alliances, that's NDA and UPA in several states, is going to be as interesting as it is going to be between the lead parties, that is BJP and the Congress. We'll take a short break, but on the other side of the break, we'll talk about some regional players, those regional parties which have made this particular election a very interesting one by making the fight either a triangular one or a multi-cornered contest in several states. So stay tuned. Welcome back. So let's talk about some regional parties as well. Now, the other two battleground states of Uttar Pradesh and West Bengal are likely to see a triangular fight. In Uttar Pradesh, that has 80 parliamentary seats. The BJP, which won 71 seats in a multi-corner contest in 2014, is up against the combined forces of two significant regional parties joining hands, the Samajwadi Party and the Bahujan Samaj Party. The Congress is bringing up the third corner of the fight. In West Bengal, though, the BJP's two Lok Sabha seats in 2014 but emerged as a key challenger to Trinamool Congress that won 34 of the 42 constituencies. This time around, it is going to be a three-cornered contest against the Congress and the left combined in the state. Okay, so let's look at, these states which have these regional players playing a very, very significant role. And let's begin with, something like the state of Uttar Pradesh. Shekhar, if we look at the scenario out there and the way Samajwadi Party and Bahujan Samaj Party has come together, there are two aspects. One, not a good signal for the Congress, specifically that it has been left out of the alliance. Not a very, good situation for BJP as well, because they now have to fight these two together.
Yes, because the fact that the two parties have come together, particularly, I would say rather, two personalities have come together. It is Mayawati and Akhilesh Yadav. And as I have said before, this is a new arrangement, a new alliance, and it's a revival of the old experiment which was there in the mid-90s between Mulayam Singh Yadav and Kanshiram. And it was essentially an attempt to bring two social groups, the Dalits and the Yadavs. Now, what we are going to see in this election is whether the arrangement between Bua, that is Mayawati, and Bhatija, that is Akhilesh Yadav, is going to convert into a social alliance. If that is going to happen, because as analysts, I am not able to perceive a shift in this kind of new social alliance. I mean, this is going to be the biggest thing, and we are hearing there will be a joint rally where Mayawati and Mulayam will come together sometime in April.
Yeah.
So this is the big question there is going to be, actually, if a new social alliance is born, you have the Dalits, you have the Yadavs, and of course the minority Muslims also join.
Okay.
This is going to be a new social combination, and that could upset the apple cart as well,
Okay. So the big question is whether or not, this alliance will work on the ground. And Sanjay, you were earlier talking about the state of Uttar Pradesh. So what's your analysis out here? It's going to be a really interesting contest.
See, it was very interesting to read that Mayawati was going to campaign in Manpuri. Does Mulayam Singh Yadav need Mayawati in Manpuri? And the other aspect is, if there is going to be a combined rally, joint rally, you never know what Mulayam Singh Yadav is going to speak. He surprised everybody in Parliament by saying that I want to see Narendra Modi as Prime Minister in next Lok Sabha. And then that surprise factor may be there, may not be there, but that would be a keenly awaited situation. When BSP and SP had come together, then Mulayam Singh was there as a potent force in Uttar Pradesh. BSP under Kanshi Ram, under Mayawati, was a rising force in Uttar Pradesh. Today, Akhilesh Yadav is no Mulayam Singh Yadav, and Mayawati's influence and the kind of control or clout or influence she had over social constituents is hugely diminished. She has 0 seats in parliament, and in fact previous tally is no indicator that same is going to happen in parliamentary election or assembly election, but that difference is of course there. Then fact remains, on arithmetic, on paper, this is a very strong combination. And if you go by simple arithmetic, BJP would be hard pressed to win half the number of seats they won last time. But is this election going to be only about arithmetic, or this election is going to be about as to who is going to lead the nation and who can secure kind of more social benefits, economic benefits and otherwise to people of Uttar Pradesh? In fact, if you go by 2014, people actually looked in Narendra Modi as somebody who could deliver them something. In 2017 assembly election also, it was in his name. It was not in Yogi Adityanath's name. I have a feeling that election in UP and West Bengal, the 2 states that you mentioned, in fact, those 2 states and the number of seats that BJP is going to win is actually going to decide the margin by which they can return to power, or whatever, how far or how much ahead of the majority mark they are going to be in. I have a feeling, based on my inputs on the ground and based on my observations, these elections, it's turning towards a personality-centric election. See, Mayawati cannot become Prime Minister now, and then you also have a situation whereby Akhilesh Yadav also cannot say that Mulayam Singh Yadav is going to be that social, that flag, joint flag and everything is there. Post Pulwama, post Balakot, there is a decisive shift in voters' mood. If that going to be so in West Bengal and in Uttar Pradesh, not so much in West Bengal, but in Uttar Pradesh, if that going to be so, then BJP's road back to power. Congress's angle is again very important, because Congress is Priyanka Gandhi going to Chandrasekhar Azad to meet him in hospital in Meerut. She is in charge of Eastern UP, and going to meet, of course, had a huge significance. BSP obviously is not very happy with that. They are actually
so all the players are making right noises at this point in time, but what happens on the ground is going to be really interesting. Aditi, I'm pretty sure that you would want to also pitch in on Uttar Pradesh as well, but I'll add an additional question here, and that about interesting aspect in the state of West Bengal as well, as Sanjay was pointing out. Specifically if you look at Congress plus left in West Bengal and Congress versus left in Kerala as well. So it's going to be a really interesting aspect again.
So let's tackle Uttar Pradesh first. A lot has changed between 2014 and 2019 in the ground situation in Uttar Pradesh, particularly in regard to the Dalit Muslim sense of exclusion and the Dalit Muslim identification together as a group. So this is quite important, because I think in 2015 Chandrasekhar Azad Ravan floated his Bhim Sena. This was meant to be a party which will take direct action on behalf of the Dalits, and this was largely in response to the rise and growth and development of Yogi Adityanath's intervention in the social alignments in UP, which were very much in favor of upper caste, specifically Thakurs. So I am not saying that this is something that has not existed in UP earlier, but I am just saying that it has acquired a new edge after the assembly elections in UP.
And a lot will depend on that.
A lot will depend on this, because I think there are new formations on the ground which we are not able to see.
And what about West Bengal?
West Bengal, I think after the Mirik by-election, the result of which went strongly in favor of Trinamool Congress. North Bengal has fallen. And BJP is going to find it very difficult, I think, in Darjeeling to win the parliamentary seat. In the rest of Bengal also, Mamata Banerjee's popularity is very high. So I think West Bengal may be a harder frontier, but your question was about the Congress's
Congress
prospects.
and the left. You know.
Congress's prospects. I think the left is a declining rather than a rising force, and the Congress feels that it's better to lie low for the moment. They may have different tactics in Kerala and different tactics in Bengal, but in Bengal at least I doubt very much if they're going to assert themselves.
Okay, let's bring in Alokji here. Alokji, on both these states, that's Uttar Pradesh and West Bengal, how do you see things panning out specifically? Because these are going to be two very crucial states.
So I think so far as West Bengal is concerned, I think Aditi has already summed up it well. I don't think there is anything to be added further on it. However, I have a take on Uttar Pradesh.
Okay.
I think the combining Samajwadi Party and Bahujan Samajwadi Party is not so much a question of social alignment. It's a question of the trust, whether these two communities really trust each other. And the leaders may have thought of coming together, and I don't think in this parliamentary election the results earlier of Phulpur and Gorakhpur could be really taken as the real picture, in Uttar Pradesh. The fact is there is a history between these two parties and the way the leaders have behaved with each other. It's very difficult, that sharing the flag, how a mind of a Yadav or a mind of the Dalits really, who swear by Behenji, would really see that, as a real acceptance.
Okay.
Because they have been persecuted for so long by either the Yadavs, so far as the rule of, Samajwadi Party was in Uttar Pradesh. I don't think those can be forgotten.
Okay.
And so far as BSP rule is concerned, the Yadavs is also seen when Mayawati came into power, what was the situation. So while coming together, if really it happens and really both are able to transfer vote for each other, really it will be a big, I would say, change and shift as so far as the way these two communities or the vote banks behave.
Okay.
But the fact remains it will be very difficult that really these two groups would be able to trust each other when it comes to parliamentary election and they finally go for voting.
Okay.
Actually, BJP is a problem, so much in Western Uttar Pradesh. I think the major dent which they are going to probably face because they have been not able to handle it well. And that's where, the way the social alignment probably is going to harm the BJP most in this part.
Okay. So
Congress is already, you've seen already the list of the candidates who have been announced by either Congress, Samajwadi Party and they've already put out their best candidates.
Okay.
And these are the best candidates did not do well in the last election.
Okay.
So hopefully this time probably they are the best candidates they have been put forward again.
Okay.
And these are the most confident seats for both the Samajwadi Party or the Congress Party.
Okay, so clearly what you're saying, Alokji, we're running short of time, but let me butt in here. What you're saying is that on the ground, we'll have to see as to how effective will this combination be, though on paper, as Sanjay was pointing out, arithmetic-wise, it looks like a very, very potent combination. Let's before we bring this to an end, let's quickly go down south. And Shekhar, quickly, if you could sum up for us about Telangana and Andhra Pradesh, because there are several key, regional players, TDP, TRS, YSRCP, all these do have, a bit of an influence, and a situation like these, somebody with a couple of Lok Sabha seats will wield a lot of influence.
Well, if you take Telangana, we just saw Telangana voted handsomely KCR back. So I expect him to do well in the parliamentary elections. In Andhra Pradesh, I think Chandrababu Naidu seems to be in quite caught in a corner, and Jagan Reddy has been concentrating as an opposition group for a long time, and of course there is a Pawan Kalyan factor concerning the Kapu community. He has been keeping his option open and he has aligned with the communists. So Andhra Pradesh looks little a bit of a three-cornered contest, but TRS is very clear. I mean, Telangana is very clear. TRS, I expect TRS to do very well.
Okay. Aditi, quickly, let's take a look at Odisha as well, a very important state. Let's not forget BJD, which has maintained equidistant from both Congress and the BJP. And there also, it's going to be a triangular fight this time around as well.
Well, it's going to be very interesting because BJD has won every election till now. Naveen Babu's popularity continues to be very high, but the BJP is making very strong inroads into Odisha. So we have to see now what is going to happen. I would not hazard any guesses about what's going to happen in Odisha.
Okay, so no guesses about Odisha, but clearly BJD still seems to be a very potent force. Sanjay, finally and lastly, let's look at the NCR region. States like Haryana, Punjab, Delhi, they do have their own share of nice, interesting electoral politics and regional players. Aam Aadmi Party in, the NCT of Delhi, and if you look at Haryana, then the INLD has split. There's another front out there. So how does it look like things going around?
This particular region is seeing a bizarre or very interesting from point of view of a reader. The kind of infight that is going on within Congress about alliance with Aam Aadmi Party. Arvind Kejriwal is very vocal as to why Congress is not and having alliance, and every day you see new formulas for alliance with Aam Aadmi Party and Congress in Haryana and Delhi in particular. That part is again very interesting. You see Punjab, I think Congress is still holding good.
Okay.
Haryana, in fact, situation could be a surprise if remains the same like 2014.
Okay.
In Delhi, if that particular alliance is not there, BJP of course is going to sweep all 7 out of 7 elections. I don't know. The critical factor in Delhi would remain as to the alliance which it finally happens or does not happen, and if people actually accept that particular alliance, because they have seen so many bitter things going on between the two.
So clearly, both in these areas as well as regional players do play an important role. Aditi, before we go, quick in 30-40 seconds, although there will be very less time to sum up, but the northeastern region, it's going to be really important for the BJP to retain its hold there.
But it's totally split, and I think it's going to be very difficult for the BJP to retain the same number of seats and the same popularity that it had in the last round. There are only 25 seats, but feelings about BJP run very high, and frankly the BJP has to prove itself all over again.
Okay. So it's going to be really interesting in all these areas, and from Monday onwards, we'll start taking a look at each and every states, the political combinations there, the alliances, how these parties have fared well previously, and what are the issues going to be in our special show, Rajyanama. We'll also bring in a new segment that is Data Center, wherein one of my colleagues will be present to go ahead and give you the details of how the facts and figures have been associated with all these political parties in that electoral battle. So we'll come back again on Monday with all the details and keep you updated on everything which is happening as far as general elections 2019 is concerned. Keep watching Rajya Sabha Television.